from Europe, where European Parliament President Roberta Metsola has arrived in Kyiv to meet President Volodymyr Zelensky, Prime Minister Minister Svyrydenko and Parliament Speaker Stefanchuk. Metsola making her fourth visit to Ukraine since the full-scale war began in 2022, discussed Ukraine's EU accession efforts, Western support and sanctions against Russia. She called her visit a strong message of European solidarity, 1,300 days after the start of the conflict. The trip comes after the European Parliament passed a now binding resolution urging a peaceful end to the war and recommending the launch of EU accession talks, currently blocked by Hungary, considered the most Kremlin-friendly member of the state. The European Commission is also expected to unveil its 19th package of sanctions targeting Russia's crypto assets, banks and energy sector. We are once again joined by Mark Sutherland to discuss these updates coming out of Kyiv. Mark, Roberta Metsola has called her trip to Kyiv a strong message of European solidarity. This of course, comes 1,300 days after the war started. How much weight do these visits carry for Ukrainians on the ground these days, especially from European leaders?
You and I have discussed over the last few months this dreadful war starting February 2022 after the invasion. The losses on the Russian side, the losses on the Ukrainian side, the actual taking of nearly 20% of the Ukrainian land and the devastation then caused. This is humanitarian. This is we need it to stop. And as you rightly say, there's 1,300 days. This is her fourth visit. They are looking in regard to ascension, e.g. how Europe giving even more support to the Ukraine, which, with what I'm reading, they are certainly holding the line. And as you and I have discussed, this whole thing of giving military aid to them. The bottom line is it's constant words. We need, and there are those articles about that, we need these people to come to the table for a lasting peace, to drill down, to sort this out. Now, the other thing that I could be accused of being very, very cynical is that, of course, sadly, war makes money for people, and that's why I say we want this to end. Now, President Trump has called for even more sanctions, which the Europeans, as you just said, put the 19th round in. They want more sanctions in regard to energy and how Russia then sells that oil to then finance its war machine. And it's looking at nearly 50% of its economy to actually do that. More and more, if those are applied, because they are not in a good position, and that helps to then drag them, we hope, we pray, to the negotiating table. Thomas.
Mark, let's quickly talk about the issue of fatigue here. This war is entering its fourth year, and we have had two players out of the four that have been vocal in said fatigue, those being the United States as being mediator just months in, Donald Trump even debating whether he wants the United States to mediate in this conflict anymore. And of course, Ukrainians who do not want this war to go on any longer. Europeans, however, with the exception of Hungary, have remained strong and said and stood by Ukraine. And what is your analysis of the two players that have said that they are not fatigued in standing by this war, and those being Russia and Europe?
We have to remember where Hungary is geopolitically, where it is geographically, and its previous relationships and relationships that it has had. This is very important. The geopolitically, as you said, in regard to relationships, America has really turned around and said we need this sorted out, because this happened under the Biden administration. The Americans would still look at, well, you raise the money, you can buy weapons off us, but we want this to end, as so do the Europeans. And as I've said, Thomas, without sounding too cynical, the other thing is that all the European economies are not in a very, very good position whatsoever. And unfortunately, wars make money. We need the both sides to come to negotiating table. You and I discussed when there was recently the last negotiations in Turkey that lasted 45 minutes just to exchange prisoners. Now, we need them to come to the table. Russia, the one way to do that, as it's been done, another 19th round, is through economic sanctions, is damaging it in regard to the oil and gas that it then will sell. And look at the relationships, and some of those relationships with other countries, particularly like China, maybe not as strong as some people say. There are people that are circling the sort of Russian empire on the edges, so to speak. The bottom line is, we need these sides to come together. We need to stop this. Then it's going to be about what land goes back, what land doesn't go back. And when people like President Zelensky understandably say, well, any ground that's been taken, and come to the table, negotiate and stop this, please. Sorry, Thomas.
That's all right. Mark, thank you very much for joining us. Always a pleasure to talk to you. Thank you for taking the time.